Have you ever been knocked down so many times that you quietly accepted the idea that success simply wasn't in your future? Maybe you poured your heart into a business, only to watch it fall apart. Then you tried again and again, each attempt ending the same way: failure. Now you might be on your third, fourth, or even fifth try, while people around you shake their heads and say, "Enough. Be realistic. Find a normal job." But here's the truth most people never tell you: failure is not proof that you're losing. It's the cost you pay to enter the game. Success doesn't come first, failure does. This is the true story of a man who stumbled 11 separate times. He lost every dollar he owned. He filed for bankruptcy. He slept without a home. He became the joke of his neighborhood, someone others pointed at as an example of what not to become. And yet, against all odds, he later went on to create a company worth over $10 million. His name was Victor. If you've ever felt exhausted from trying, if you've ever considered quitting because the pain feels endless, this story may completely change how you see your life. Stay with me until the very end, because Victor's breakthrough had nothing to do with intelligence, powerful friends, or being lucky at the right moment. What carried him forward was far less glamorous, but far more difficult. Victor's journey began in a medium-sized industrial town, where smokestacks framed the skyline and ambition was often seen as impractical. Factories dominated the riverbanks, and most people believed stability mattered more than dreams. At 28 years old, Victor Chen lived an unremarkable life. He didn't grow up desperate or starving. His father ran a modest printing business, nothing impressive, but reliable enough to provide comfort. The family never struggled to put food on the table. Victor received a decent education and graduated from college. By all appearances, his life was predictable, safe, and average. But what happened next would push him far beyond anything ordinary. But a predictable life was never enough for Victor. Deep inside, he felt an urge to build something of his own, to create value, to leave proof that he was capable of more than a quiet, comfortable existence. At just 22 years old, newly graduated and full of confidence, Victor took the money he had saved and opened a small mobile phone accessories shop. The year was 2008. Smartphones were starting to appear everywhere, and Victor believed he had perfect timing. He thought he was riding the beginning of a massive trend. He was wrong. After only 8 months, the shop shut its doors for good. The experiment ended with a loss of $15,000. When Victor came home defeated, his father tried to comfort him. "It's all right," he said gently. "Come help me at the printing shop. Learn the trade. There's no shame in stability." But to Victor, accepting that offer felt like surrender. Working for his father didn't feel like safety. It felt like admitting that he had failed before he truly began. So he tried again. At 23, Victor launched an online tutoring platform. He spent an entire year designing the website, finding tutors, and advertising to parents. He worked late nights, fueled by hope and stubborn belief. After 12 months of effort, the results were brutal: 3 paying customers. Total income, $280. He shut the project down in silence. At 24, he jumped into a food delivery startup. It collapsed, costing him another $8,000. At 25, he opened a small clothing boutique. That failed too, taking $12,000 with it. At 26, he attempted an event planning business. It lasted barely long enough to drain another $6,000 from what little he had left. Year after year, Victor wasn't just losing businesses. He was losing money, confidence, and the respect of people watching from the sidelines. And yet, somehow, he still refused to stop. Soon, people began to recognize a pattern, and once they did, the whispers started. "Oh, Victor Chen? He's the guy who never succeeds. Another business? How many has that been now? 5? Poor parents. Imagine watching your own son burn money year after year." What hurt most wasn't just the gossip. It was how quickly Victor became a label, an example people used to warn others, a story told with a shake of the head. His former college friends, now climbing corporate ladders, driving new cars, buying homes, quietly stopped calling. Invitations to gatherings and reunions faded away. Victor wasn't part of their future plans anymore. He had become something uncomfortable to be around, an embarrassment, a living warning. Victor felt their judgment pressing down on him every day. But worse than the voices outside were the ones inside his own mind. In the silence of late nights, staring at the ceiling, Doubt crept in. Maybe they're right, he thought. Maybe I was never meant to build anything. Maybe I'm not an entrepreneur at all, just a failure who refuses to accept it. By then, the damage was complete. His savings had vanished. His credit cards were maxed out. He had borrowed money from relatives who now ignored his calls. At 27, Victor reached the lowest point of his life. His sixth attempt, a digital marketing agency, collapsed faster than all the others. He had taken out a loan, hired 2 employees, and signed a lease for a small office, convinced this time would be different. It wasn't. Within 6 months, every client disappeared. He couldn't cover salaries. He couldn't pay rent. The landlord forced him out. The bank demanded repayment. His employees quit, angry and bitter. And for the first time ever, Victor did something he never imagined. He filed for personal bankruptcy. At 28 years old, he moved back into the small bedroom of his childhood home. The walls hadn't changed, but everything else had. His father spoke only when necessary. His mother cried quietly at night, thinking he couldn't hear her. Victor had no money, no direction, and no belief left in himself. One evening, sitting on his old bed, surrounded by rejection emails from job applications that went nowhere, Victor made a decision. One more, he whispered into the darkness. Just one last attempt. If I fail again, I'll stop. I'll accept the truth. I'll let go of this dream forever. But I need one final chance, not to prove anything to others, but to prove something to myself. This time, however, he understood one painful truth. He couldn't do it alone. Victor needed money, capital, a fresh start. But no bank would touch a 7-time failed founder with bankruptcy stamped on his record. Every door was closed. So he swallowed his pride and did something that felt humiliating. He took a job as a waiter at an upscale restaurant. Night after night, he served wealthy executives and successful entrepreneurs. People who talked casually about deals, investments, and opportunities while he refilled their glasses and cleared their plates. And without realizing it, Victor was about to learn the lesson that would finally change everything. Night after night, Victor carried plates past tables where powerful conversations flowed effortlessly. He heard discussions about mergers, investments, market expansion, words that once belonged to his own dreams. Each shift ended the same way. Victor walking home exhausted, replaying the irony of his life. A man who wanted to build companies now served dinner to those who already had. One evening, a familiar face was seated in his section, a regular customer in his early 60s, Mr. Joe. He owned several manufacturing facilities and had reputation around the city as a self-made millionaire, calm, observant, and quietly confident. As Victor placed the dish on the table, Mr. Joe looked up and spoke without hesitation. "You don't belong here." Victor stopped mid-step. "I've been watching you for weeks," Mr. Joe continued. "You don't just serve food. You listen, you think, you ask smart questions. You're learning from every conversation. So tell me, why are you working as a waiter?" Victor hesitated. Then something inside him gave up pretending. "Because I failed at everything else." Mr. Joe smiled, not with pity, but curiosity. "How many times?" Victor swallowed. 7 businesses. All have collapsed." Joe leaned back in his chair. "You know what I see?" he said. "I see someone who tried 7 times. Most people never even try once." He gestured toward the chair across from him. "Sit down." "Sir, I'm on shift." "Sit," Mr. Joe said calmly. "I'll deal with your manager." Victor obeyed. "I failed 11 times before my first real success," Mr. Joe said, his voice steady. "I lost my house, slept in my car. My wife almost walked away. On attempt number 12, something finally changed." Victor stared at him, stunned. 11 failures. This man, wearing a tailored suit worth more than Victor's entire bank balance, had fallen even harder. "What changed?" Victor asked quietly. "I learned 3 lessons," Mr. Joe replied. 3 principles that turned me from someone who kept losing into someone who could finally build something that lasted." He paused, then leaned forward. "If you're serious about trying again, and I mean truly serious, not just refusing to quit out of pride, meet me tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock at my office. I'll teach you what I learned, but only if you're willing to learn, not just repeat the same mistakes with more effort." That night, Victor didn't sleep. His mind raced with possibilities, fear, and a hope he hadn't felt in years. At 5:45 a.m. the next morning, Victor stood outside Mr. Joe's office building, heart pounding, hands cold. When Mr. Joe arrived exactly at 6, he glanced at his watch and smiled. "You're early," he said. Good. That's the first sign you might actually succeed this time. Mr. Joe guided Victor into his office. The room felt heavy with history. Shelves packed with books, plaques lining the walls, framed photos capturing moments of success. But Victor's eyes were drawn to something unexpected. In the corner hung a small frame, simple and unpolished. Inside it was a handwritten list of 11 company names. Every single one was crossed out with thick red ink. I keep that where I can see it, Mr. Joe said calmly, so I never forget where everything started. He turned toward the whiteboard. Now listen carefully. I'm going to teach you the 3 rules that transformed my failures into a solid foundation. Mr. Joe sketched a rough diagram. Nothing fancy, just lines and boxes. Tell me about your 7 failed businesses, he said. But don't give me excuses. I don't want to hear about competition, timing, or lack of funding. I want to know what you did wrong, every time. Victor paused, thinking harder than he ever had before. Then the truth came out. I rushed into ideas without researching, he admitted. I didn't really understand who my customers were. I spent money too fast and ran out before anything gained traction. Stop, Mr. Joe interrupted gently. He circled a phrase on the board. You just described the exact same mistake 7 different ways. He wrote 4 words beneath it. Passion without preparation. Victor, Mr. Joe continued, imagine you're building a house. You're excited about the design, the furniture, how impressive it will look, but you skip the blueprint. You ignore the foundation. You start throwing up walls because you're motivated. He drew a house collapsing into itself. Every time it falls, you blame the tools, the weather, the workers. But the real issue is always the same. There's nothing holding it up. He underlined the words. Law number 1, learn before you launch. Before your next attempt, you will spend 3 full months studying the industry, the market, and your competitors. Not 3 days, not 3 weeks, 3 months. Most people fail because they confuse excitement with expertise. Victor scribbled furiously in the notebook. Mr. Joe slid across the desk. Now, Mr. Joe said, why did your businesses collapse so fast? Victor answered honestly. I ran out of money. I lost momentum. Customers didn't show up quickly enough. Mr. Joe nodded. Exactly, because you expected results in 6 months. He turned back to the board and wrote large numbers. Here's a truth that will save you years of pain, he said. Any business worth building takes at least 18 months before it shows real momentum. He pointed to each section as he spoke. Months 1 to 6, learning, mistakes, frustration. Months 7 to 12, slow progress, still uncertain. Months 13 to 18, things finally start clicking. Month 19 and beyond, growth accelerates. He faced Victor. Law number 2, commit to 18 months, not 6. Not until motivation fades, not until money gets tight. 18 months of showing up every single day, even when it feels pointless. Then came the question, can you do that? Victor felt the weight of it settle into his chest. 18 months. He realized something painful. He had never committed to anything for that long. I can, he said quietly. Mr. Joe nodded. Your 7th business was digital marketing. Do you know why it failed? I lost clients, Victor replied. No, Mr. Joe said firmly. You tried to be everything. He listed them on the board. Social media, SEO, content, websites, email campaigns. You offered every service, which meant you were average at all of them. A full-service agency is usually just a full list of weaknesses. He drew a single bold arrow. Law number 3, do one thing better than anyone else. Not 10 things decently, one thing exceptionally. Mr. Joe capped the marker and looked at Victor. Mastery beats variety. Focus beats ambition without direction. And in that moment, Victor realized something profound. For the first time, failure wasn't being explained as bad luck. It was being decoded. Exceptionally well, Mr. Joe finished. Become so good at one narrowly defined service that people have no choice but to notice you. He closed his notebook and looked Victor straight in the eyes. I'll give you 3 months, he said. 3 months of mentorship. No payment. Every Saturday morning at 6 o'clock, you'll be here. I'll teach you how to research properly, how to plan intelligently, and how to build a real foundation. Then he continued, slower this time. After that, you will choose one service in one industry. Not 2, not 5, 1. And you will aim to become the best at it. Then you will commit fully to 18 months, regardless of what happens. Mr. Joe leaned forward, his voice firm. But if you quit before those 18 months are over, don't ever contact me again. I don't invest time in people who throw away their own potential. Do we have an agreement?" Victor didn't hesitate. He reached out his hand. "Deal." From that moment on, Victor's routine changed completely. Every Saturday at exactly 6 a.m., he sat across from Mr. Joe. They studied market data, broke down winning companies, and examined Victor's past failures, not with shame, but with precision. Every mistake became a lesson. Every wrong decision became a data point. Gradually, a pattern emerged. Victor chose a single focus: LinkedIn lead generation for B2B tech companies. One service, one market, nothing else. For 3 full months, he didn't launch anything. He didn't chase clients. He didn't try to make money. He studied relentlessly. He learned how LinkedIn's algorithm actually worked. He analyzed B2B sales cycles. He mapped out the exact pain points tech founders struggled with. He researched competitors and documented what they did well and where they failed. His father watched in frustration. "Another 3 months with no income?" he said. "You're wasting time again." But Victor remembered the lesson: foundation before construction. In the 4th month, he finally launched. The business was called Tech Lead Connect, a LinkedIn lead generation service built exclusively for B2B technology companies. No fancy website, no office, no employees. Just Victor, his laptop, and a clear, bold promise: "I will deliver 20 qualified B2B leads every month, or you don't pay." His first client was a small software startup. The fee, $500 per month. When Victor told his mother, she cried, not because it was a lot of money, but because for the first time in years, it was something real. Still, Victor knew the truth. This was only the beginning. He had committed to 18 months. Month 5, one client, $500 a month, barely enough to survive. Month 6, 2 clients, $1,000 a month. Month 7, one client left, back to $500. Nothing felt stable. One evening, his father confronted him. "8 months," he said, "and you're still making $500 a month. This looks exactly like before. The same cycle. You need to stop." Victor stood there in silence, the words heavy in the air. But this time, something was different. He didn't panic. He didn't quit. And he didn't argue. Because for the first time in his life, he wasn't guessing anymore. He was following a plan, and the clock was still ticking toward 18 months. Victor felt that familiar shadow return. The quiet voice of doubt he knew too well. Maybe his father was right after all. Maybe this was simply failure number 8 wearing a different disguise. But then he remembered Mr. Joe's words. Months 1 through 6 are meant for learning and pain. Struggle wasn't a sign he was losing. It was proof he was exactly where he was supposed to be. And so he stayed. Month 9 arrived. 3 clients, $1,500 a month. Month 10, 5 clients, $2,500. Month 11, 7 clients, $3,500. It still wasn't enough to escape his childhood home or erase his debts. Yet something had changed beneath the surface. These clients weren't disappearing. They were renewing. They were getting real results. And quietly, without Victor forcing it, word began to spread. Then came month 13. A mid-sized tech company signed a contract for $3,000 a month. When Victor saw the signed agreement, his hands shook. He nearly cried, not from relief, but from validation. Month 14, that same client referred 2 others. Revenue jumped to $8,000 a month. Month 15, $12,000 a month. Victor hired his first employee. Exactly 18 months after launching Tech Lead Connect, Victor landed his largest contract yet, a venture-backed tech startup paying $10,000 per month for lead generation. Total monthly revenue, $28,000. That night, Victor sat alone in the same bedroom where he had once believed his life was over. 2 years earlier, this room had witnessed his lowest point. Now, it held something different. Hope. He picked up the phone and called Mr. Joe. 18 months, Victor said, his voice breaking. "You were right." Mr. Joe laughed softly. "Good," he said. "Now the real work actually begins." With proof, testimonials, and consistent results, growth accelerated. Year 2, $400,000 in annual revenue, 5 employees. Year 3, $1.2 million, a real office. Every debt paid off. His father, who had once begged him to quit, finally smiled. 5 years after that early morning meeting at 6 a.m., Tech Lead Connect crossed $10 million in yearly revenue. 60 employees, offices in 3 cities, features in business magazines, and Victor, now 33 years old, stood on stage at a business conference sharing his story. During a break, a young entrepreneur approached him nervously. "Mr. Chen," he said, "I've failed twice already. Should I try again?" Victor smiled. "How badly do you want it?" "More than anything." "Then yes," Victor replied, "but let me tell you what most people won't." He paused. "Failure isn't a detour, it is the road." People assume successful entrepreneurs are the ones who never failed. That's wrong. We're the ones who failed the most and refused to stop. "I failed 7 times before I met my mentor," Victor continued. "Those 7 failures taught me 7 very expensive lessons. When I started business number 8, I didn't repeat the same mistakes. I made new ones and learned from those too." If you're going to try again, remember these 3 things. First, learn before you launch. Passion without preparation is just costly optimism. Spend 3 months studying your market, your customers, and your competition. Build the foundation first. Second, commit to 18 months. Not until motivation fades, not until money feels tight. 18 full months of daily effort. Most businesses don't actually fail. Most people quit during the painful phase before progress shows up. Third, master one thing. Don't be average at everything. Be exceptional at one specific skill. Become so good they can't ignore you. And here's something else I learned from 11 failures. No, 12, Victor laughed. Because technically my 8th business was attempt number 12 if you count childhood lemonade stands. The audience laughed with him. Failure only becomes permanent when you stop. Every success story is built on a graveyard of attempts that didn't work. The difference between success and failure isn't talent. It's not luck. It's not even effort. He paused, letting the silence work. It's showing up one more time, then you fall down. Before Mr. Joe retired, Victor visited his office one last time. "Thank you," Victor said simply. "You saved my life." Mr. Joe shook his head. "No, Victor, I didn't save you. I just reminded you of what you already had, the ability to keep going. You walked the path yourself. I only pointed it out." So if you're watching this and you've failed, maybe more than once, maybe people have told you it's time to quit, let Victor's story give you permission to try again. But this time, do it differently. Study for 3 months before you start. Commit to 18 months no matter what. Master one thing extraordinarily well. I can't promise you'll build a $10 million business, but I can promise this. If you follow these 3 principles, you'll go farther than you ever have before. And maybe, just maybe, attempt number 8, 9, or 10 will be the one that changes everything. If this story gave you the courage to try one more time, hit the like button. Not for me, but as a promise to yourself. Drop a comment with, "I'm on attempt number." Let's see how many people here are still fighting. Share this with someone who's about to give up. It might be the message that carries them one more day. And subscribe to this channel, because every week we share stories of people who failed, persisted, and eventually won. You're not alone in this. Remember Victor's journey. 7 failures. Bankruptcy, humiliation, rock bottom, before everything changed. And it all happened because he refused to stop showing up. And that journey eventually led to a business worth $10 million. What separated Victor's 7th collapse from his 8th victory wasn't timing or good fortune. It was simple discipline, 3 clear principles, and 18 months of absolute commitment without walking away. Your turning point may not be years away. It might not even be far at all. It could be sitting right in front of you. Because sometimes success isn't about starting over. It's about standing up one more time.